ఓం శ్రీ గురుభ్యో నమః. హరి ఓం. ఓం సహనా భవతు సహనౌ భునక్తు సహ వీర్యం కరవావహై తేజస్వినావధీతమస్తు మా విద్విషావహై. ఓం శాంతి శాంతి శాంతి. So we were discussing about Ishtadevata, our approach to Ishtadevata, how to choose Ishtadevata, the importance, etc. This comes under the topic of Ishvara Pranidhana in yoga. So in Yoga Sutra, the topic of Ishvara Pranidhana occurs in Samadhi Pada and also in Sadhana Pada. And Ishvara Bhakti, devotion to God, especially the devotion without, not for the sake of, without any personal motive, devotion that is desireless, or the devotion that is directed for moksha or jnana, or chitta shuddhi, right? Self purification. So that nishkamya bhakti, the devotion to God that is not motivated by personal materialistic desire, and making the body, the energy circuits, the prana, the thought patterns, manas, the ways of thinking and decision making and analysis, the knowledge, which is Vijnanamaya, Buddhi, the attitude, and all our likes and dislikes, preferences, surrendering everything into the vision of God. Vision in the sense into the understanding of God. When the understanding of God consumes all these, that is bhakti, that is Nishkamya Bhakti. And the choosing of Ishtadevata, one's relationship with Ishtadevata, is the channel through which all this process of surrender, the maturity into surrender happens in the platform or the base of our relationship with our Ishtadevata. Right? So that is the context. So when we are talking about worship of God, there are different approaches. But broadly, we can understand consumerist bhakti and contemplation aiding bhakti. Right? Consumerist bhakti would be, my goal is not God. My goal is not the wisdom connected with what is God, Brahman, etc. My goal is not God. My goal is some gratification. It could be a simple desire, like a child. When a child is going to the mall, the parents have decided to take the child to the mall. The child wants one toy very badly, but he knows that the father will not agree or may not agree, or there may be some problem. So on the way to the mall, there is a Ganesha temple. So the child talks to Ganesha. They are there. Ganesha is there. Do namaskaram and then we go to the mall. And there is a Ganesha temple. So what is the child praying? Ganesha, please make sure my father will agree for the toy. Now, it is the same brain circuit that is coming for all the materialistic prayers that we keep in front of God. Nothing wrong in that. There's absolutely nothing wrong. If we cannot ask God, whom we are going to ask? So that is all right. we have to understand the difference. I want this or that for my gratification, and for the sake of getting this or that, God, the all powerful person, the one who is taking care of everything in this universe, must do some magic, whatever are the factors that could, I'm trying to do my best, whatever that could be a problem factor in affecting what I want, in me getting what I want. God should take care of all that, and everything should be friendly so that I get what I want. Because God is all powerful, He can get things done for me. Basically, you are approaching God like how you would approach a mafia don. So this is consumerist spiritual. So this has two things: wanting some objects of desire, that could be one approach. Getting rid of obstacles is another approach. And I made some guilt, worship out of guilt. I made some mistakes, I feel guilty, so I offer some money in a temple, or I go and get some puja done to neutralize the sinful karma that I have done. Many politicians do this. Many people who do this, rich guys who make money out of illegal activity, they will go and get some big puja done, or they will offer something to a temple, or if it is their whatever religion they are, according to their religion, they will do some offering to some whatever is the religious organization through which they are connecting to the religion. Right? So they will offer something to one of the structures, the temple, or whatever is the place of worship, or the organization, or the priest, the clergy, the priest, somewhere, something, whatever they are told to do, they will do. And then they think that their sinful karma is gone. They have done a neutral. It's called prayaschitta karma. I have done a mistake. So atonement. It could be an atonement. That is a sincere thing. Atonement is very useful, because if you really atone for your mistake and you go through some trouble in order to neutralize that feeling, then you will not do that same mistake. So that is a purificatory process. That is all right. Instead of atonement, you do balancing act. So you don't atone that. You are going to continue to do the same nonsense, but you try to do, like, for example, there are people who sell food. So they make profit out of selling food. So ideally, you are not supposed to sell food. According to Dharma Shastra, one is not supposed to sell food. Food is for hunger. At least the food meant for hunger should not be sold. Maybe you can sell some exotic gourmet dishes or some desserts. Nobody eats that for hunger. So that is a delicacy. That is pleasure. I am not talking about the pleasure-oriented food. I am talking about the survival and hunger-oriented food. So those who sell cooked food, the ready-made food ready to eat, so they are incurring some kind of a negative karma. So that is what the Dharma Shastra says. So those who know this rule, what they do, certain percentage of what they have earned from that business, they do annadana. So they will have some free food distributed, or in certain occasions they will make sure that they are taking care of the food distribution of a temple festival or an ashram, etc. So it's called annadana. Annadanam is done with a deliberate intention to nullify the negative effect that comes from selling food. Okay, this is called prayaschitta karma. So you do some good karma to balance some bad karma. Yeah? And also you do what is called as dosha nivratti karma. So for example, some astrologer will tell you in your horoscope, this planet is not okay, that planet is not okay, so this Rahu is not okay. So you go to the temple in Trinageshwaram and do one homam. Your Saturn is not okay, go to Trinallari and do some puja. Like that, you have this what you call as dosha nivritti, means uh, nullification of the defect in your horoscope, or nullification of some negativity, clearing some negativity in your life by doing some rituals. So that way also one approaches God. Then there will be a talk about this temple god is more powerful than that temple god. So you should go to this kind of Ganesha and not that kind of Ganesha. You should go to this Bhairava instead of Shiva. You should go to Bhairava. That is more powerful. No, no, you should not go to Durga. You must go and worship Kali, and especially that Kali in that temple is very powerful. And the story of that temple tells you that this Kali will neutralize this specific problem. Like that, you have a huge industry operating around. Now, we are not talking about all this kind of bhakti. So, when we are talking about relationship with God and Ishta Devata in our Nishta class, we are only talking about devotion for the sake of freedom and wisdom and purification of mind, or a devotional process that takes you towards this kind of mature devotion. So, if I am not capable of mature devotion, eventually the way I practice my Ishvara Bhakti, the way I practice my devotion to God, should gradually take me towards this mature kind of devotion. So, that is what we are trying to discuss in our, that is the context of worship of Ishvara that we are talking here, not all the other things. So, we can forget about all that. Those are not relevant for spiritual growth. So, consumerist spirituality, spiritual consumerism is another track, spiritual evolution is another track. So, if I am going in the consumerist spirituality, I do not have any inner growth. So, spirituality becomes like any other resource. It's like any other material resource. I go to a doctor, I go to a, I take some drugs, or I go for a cinema and do some entertainment, or I go for retail therapy. I go for the mall and buy all kinds of things, and then I think that I feel good for some time until I get depressed again. So all these things, they temporarily give you some stuff, some kind of a relief, some kind of a solace, right? Some kind of relaxation. So similarly, consumerist bhakti, it does not bring any inner growth. Okay, what we can say is it is better than no bhakti at all. There is some kind of association with God, maybe some good karma that you have done in some past life. Maybe one fine morning you might think of a better way to relate to God simply because you were in the atmosphere, simply because you were in the presence of the divine. You make yourself available in the presence of the divine. You go to temple even for the sake of materialistic prayer. You go to the temple instead of a mafia don, right? So, because of the invocation and the power of the divinity in the temple, some good karmas might come to the forefront, and one fine morning you might find a better way to relate to God. You might find a better, mature approach towards God. That possibility is definitely there. So, this is better than nothing. So, if we are talking about that level, it's fine. That angle is always there. But here, we are not talking about that. We are already talking about the next level. So, we are talking only about the mature bhakti, or the way of bhakti that will take us to the mature bhakti. So, from that angle, if we talk about our relationship with our favorite, the close to heart version of the divine, Ishta Devata, then the criteria is not how the deity is, what the deity does. So, all these criteria that are discussed about in consumerist spirituality, we can completely forget about it. Every form of divinity is equally powerful, equally divine, and equally capable of taking us towards the highest. This is something that we need to very clearly understand. When we are approaching the concept of Ishta Devata for the purpose of yoga or for the purpose of jnana, which is basically moksha, all the forms of God are equally good, This is one point. Point number one, all the forms of the divine are equally good. Point number two, all the aspects of divine can be invoked in every form. If you are worshipping Ganesha, the energy of Shiva, Vishnu, Goddess, Surya, Subramanya, everything can be invoked in Ganesha. If you are worshipping Shiva, similarly, all the energies and all the aspects of divinity. What are the different aspects of divinity? Creation, sustenance, destruction, veiling, revealing. The five jobs, the five great jobs. We have discussed about that in one of our classes before. So topic keeps coming up. So the the grace of God to remove obstacles, which is essentially represented by Ganesha. The grace of the God to give you spiritual inspiration and lift you up towards higher ideals, which is represented by Subramanya. The, the type of grace that gives you detachment and wisdom and takes you out of samsara, which is represented by Lord Shiva. The type of grace that bestows you with all the uh, richness in life, that gives you contentment and makes you embrace life as a whole and naturally evolve out of it and seek the highest and develop love of God, which is represented by Vishnu. And you know, the awareness, the psychic awareness and the inner awakening and the esoteric experiences and transformation of consciousness, which is represented by the goddess. Clarity and understanding and knowledge represented by Surya. All these aspects are available in every kind of Saguna Brahma. It is available. All these aspects are available in Ganesha. They are available in Vishnu. They are available in Shiva. They are available in Devi. They are available in Vishnu, in Subramanya, and all the other forms like Ayyappan, or it could be it could be your own Kuladevata, your family deity. Any divine representation can be elevated to the level of Ishvara. The concept of Ishvara or the supreme divine can be superimposed on any scripturally sanctioned. Scripturally means Vedic, Puranic, Agamic, scripturally sanctioned divine form that has been revealed through a rishi. Any divine form that has been revealed through a seer, a rishi, a Vedic rishi is equally good for all purposes of relating to God, to manifest every kind of grace that is possible from God. This is the basic approach. The second point that we need to understand. One form contains all the aspects of the divine, and the supreme divine can be equally invoked in any form. If we understand this, we will not allow ourselves to get into the confusion of which God to worship. There was a person who asked me about, we may feel attracted to different types of God, different gods at different points in our life. And like astrologers say, at this period of time in your life, this is also had at this period of time. Uh, for example, they say if the planet Mars is not friendly to you, you should worship Lord Kartikeya Subramanya. Right now, Kanda Shashti is going on, Shashti festival, 6 days of Shashti is going on. So Subramanya is very predominantly worshipped in South India. There are people who take vows and all that. It's a huge thing. Shashti, Kanda Shashti is a huge thing for the Subramanya or the Kartikeya. Kaumaram, it is called the Kaumaram religion people. This is um, the people who follow the path of Kaumaram. This is a very big time now, the 6 days. Now, uh, the astrologer will say this Mars period, it is good to worship Lord Subramanya. So, but you may not be feeling anything towards Subramanya at this time because you don't have the inner, you don't have the inner samskara to tune to Subramanya. You may not have. Not all of you might have. So, no need of struggling about it. If you feel very guilty or you feel very distracted and you feel that fear, because these are all normal. A common person usually feels fear. Oh, I should do this. So it will keep on itching in your head. that guru told me or that astrologer told me, so I should worship this god. But somehow, so you can explore it if you feel connected. Even that deity you worship as the ultimate. You worship the ultimate divine, supreme divine through that form. So you can tell yourself, you can tell your Ishta Devata. Suppose if your Ishta Devata is Krishna, I'm supposed to worship Subramanya. I feel if I don't do that, I feel I'm missing something. I'm restless. So I'm going to worship you as Subramanya. It is the same God whom you worship as Krishna is the one whom you are worshipping as Subramanya. It is the same God whom you worship as Subramanya is the one whom you are worshipping as Ganesha. It is the same divine in different forms, right? So if you have a natural inclination in your heart, you see to which form your heart connects the most, right? So that comes from various factors. It comes from your past karma, it comes from your exposure in this life, and it comes from your conditioning, and it also comes from any previous sadhana that you might have done, and also it comes from the effect of the planets in your subconscious mind in this period of time in your life. So all these factors together determine where you feel your alignment. Also, it is possible that we feel an alignment with more than one divine form at the same time. Right? You go in front of a Krishna temple, you might feel great. You go in front of a Shiva temple, also you will feel very aligned and a lot of devotion, and you may feel a lot of connection. If you go in front of a Ganesha temple, also you might feel very connected and very focused, and like you might feel like chanting and connecting to that presence there. You might feel a relationship with that presence there. It is possible. So in fact, what happens is when our nadis are pure, when we purify the nadis through the process of yoga, and when we have a certain level of sattva in the mind, the three gunas, sattva, rajas, and tamas. So when we have a certain level of sattva in the mind, when your sattva is above a certain level, our mind behaves like a mirror. As we are doing different practices over a period of time, when the chitta shuddhi is good, the mind behaves like a mirror. So whatever is the divine presence in a given place, when we go there, that presence awakens in our heart. So you feel very connected, you feel very aligned with it, and then you move away to the another place, this is gone, and then that comes. So your mind becomes like a mirror. So yeah, that is the time where you don't have to bother about which god to choose, or so you can just choose whichever is closest to your heart across all time. When you are by yourself, when you are not anywhere, you're just totally by yourself in your space, and when you are connected emotionally to your spiritual goal, I will put it like that. When you are connected with the most mature version of the spiritual goal, when you are thinking about and connected with, emotionally connected to the most mature version of spiritual goal that you can think of in your head, and when you feel emotionally connected to that, in that moment, which form of god appeals or relates to that, which form of god you are able to relate to the most, while you are aligned with your deepest and the most profound version of spiritual goal that you can conceive of and emotionally relate to, at that time, which form of the divinity you are resonating with the most. So that could be your Ishta Devata. That can be chosen as your favorite version of the divine. Then that form of God will be like your connection to the Supreme, your connection to the truth throughout the journey until the point when you are ready for the truth that says you and God are one. Right? So that could be one approach. From my understanding, I feel this will be the most consistent version of Ishta Devata across all periods of time and what is relevant for our spiritual growth. So the moment when I am emotionally aligned with the highest conceivable spiritual ideal that I can cherish in my mind, that I understand in my intellect, to which I am emotionally connected and from my heart. When I experience that moment of alignment with my spiritual ideal, at that time, whichever form of the divine resonates the most with me, whichever form of the divine I feel connected to the most, that is my Ishta Devata. That can be chosen as my Ishta Devata. And no matter which period of time you go through in your life, no matter how tough your life is or how great your life is, external life, the material life is, or whatever may be the astrological situation you may be through, forget about all that. You surrender everything to the Ishta Devata and you stay tuned only to the Ishta Devata for the purpose of self purification, liberation, and knowledge, and forget about every other aspect in your life. So this is the approach to this is the approach to Ishta Devata that will give us spiritual maturity and take us along, make us grow in the path towards moksha and jnana. If I am not able to understand that, so while I am living this approach of Ishvara Bhakti, while I am practicing this form of devotion, desireless, Nishkamya Bhakti, or the devotion for the sake of liberation only, and I'm trying to approach towards that, it is not going to be steady. So that is the practical reality. So I am going to have everyday concerns where I might want to feel connected, where I want some problems to be solved, from time to time. Sometimes I might want a little bit of a divine hand to make some things easy for me. At those moments, bring all of those concerns, you bring all of those concerns and issues only to your Ishtadev. So that gives what is called as ekagrata or one pointedness. For example, you can see a practice that is connected with that, a ritualistic, very rigorous kind of a ritualistic vow they take among the Vaishnavites. The vow where they say that I will not worship any other form of divine, I will worship Vishnu alone. I don't know at what level of understanding they do that, but that is an example. Maybe it started with this purpose of developing one pointedness. So what happens is once we understand this is our Ishtadevata through the process that I just described a few minutes back, you go to that Ishtadevata. You are not asleep, talk to the Ishtadevata. You are sleeping too much, talk to the Ishtadevata. You don't want onion and garlic, but you feel like eating onion and garlic, talk to the Ishtadevata. You want a better job, talk to the Ishtadevata. You want a little more money, talk to the Ishtadevata. For everything. You want to things better in your relationship, talk to the Ishtadevata. For all problems, same divine form. It's like your friend, philosopher, guide, guru, your provider, your protector, your everything. So we have a shloka, we have a prayer we chant whenever we go in front of the divine chant. Tvameva macha mata chapimeva. You alone are my mother, you alone are and you alone are my father. Tvameva bandhu, you are all the relations. Sakha tvameva, you are also the friend. And you alone are my friend. You are my father, mother, relations, my friend. So Tvameva Vidya, you are the knowledge, you are the wealth. Dravinam Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva. You are everything for me, my divine, my supreme divine Lord, my God. Yeah. So that is a prayer that we chant no matter who is your Ishtadevata. So all the uh, different sects of devotion, they chant it in front of their uh, in front of their deity. Yeah? So this would be the approach. So this should clear all the confusion regarding which god to worship at which period of time, and all the different approaches that we have in our Hindu pantheon for different people for different levels of maturity. all that need not bother a yogi. A person who is devoted to the goal of yoga, which is Chitta Suddhi, and the goal of Vedanta, which is moksha or liberation, need not worry about all these things. It is important to have a relationship, a working relationship with God. It is important to make the concept of God in the through the form of a Ishta Devata part and parcel of our everyday life. And all aspects of our life should be linked in a devotional way, in a way of surrender to that divine. And it is enough to keep just one. It is not that you should not change. Now, this is very different. I'm not telling you must not experiment or you must not change. So, until you are able to get enough inner alignment, concentration, maturity, and inner purity to get that integrated resonance with one divine form, you can try different divine forms over different periods of time and go through the process and all that, and you will eventually settle down with one. As your chitta shuddhi, as your inner purity, nadi shuddhi, chitta shuddhi, and as the lifestyle and everything improves and becomes more and more sattvic, the clarity about what is the divine form that is the most ideal for me, for my spiritual development, will become clearer and clearer, and it will all settle down to one. Eventually, the one will be the most suitable. So, give yourself time, and it is okay to go through the process. It is not that you worship one god, the other god will become upset. uh, Nothing like that. So it is only one god whom you are approaching in different forms. It's a process by which you discover. For some, they are lucky to land on the Ishta Devata bang right on the first try. For some, it is a process. For some, a guru shows them and then it somehow clicks. Sometimes, even when a guru shows this is your, and the guru initiates and this says this is your Devata, this person becomes a curious cat. He wants to. No, I was like that when I was very young. I wanted to try this. I wanted to try that. It's like a, it's like a kid window shop. You want to understand all the divine forms. You want to understand all the energies. You are very ambitious. You are spiritually ambitious. Somebody says Sri Vidya Tantra is the greatest. Another fellow says, oh, Vishnu alone gives moksha. Nobody gives moksha. Narayana is the one for moksha. So you have the and sometimes we meet a very saintly person. So you go and meet a uh, very powerful upasaka, a person who has established the worship of a certain divine form, and the energy is very alive in him or her. You go and meet that person. That presence overwhelms your aura. The presence overwhelms your prana, your energies, right? So when you come out from that person, you feel very inspired, and you feel you must worship that god. It is like a musical instrument. If you are trying to explore music, learning music, and then you meet somebody who is extremely good in guitar, and it's a group of friends who are all very good in guitar. He plays guitar very easily, and it all looks very cool, so you want to learn guitar. And then you go and see somebody else who plays flute. They play the flute fantastic, and they're playing all the songs. Then you want to learn flute. Then you see somebody playing the grand piano. So there is a lot of social appreciation connected with that. There is a lot of snobbery around that, or there is a lot of status symbol around that. So you want to learn piano. So every instrument or every type of music appeals to you at a certain point of time, especially when you go in front of somebody who has mastered it. Then it feels like you want to. So that is the power of the virya in that person. In Yoga Sutra, there is a sutra that talks about brahmacharya pratishtayam viryalabaha. And what happens is, when your virya is more, others feel like listening to what you say. So anybody who has devoted a lot of energy and time and concentration on mastering an art form, or mastering a upasana, or mastering a certain vidya, knowledge, a domain of knowledge, if you go in their presence, you will feel inspired to follow that knowledge. So that need not be yours at all. So you will have to come back, sleep over it, take your time, come back to your most natural self, and then from there you have to see how. So over a period of time, we might have felt inspired by different teachers. We might have felt inspired by different masters. So define different upasakas, those these divine saints, and different schools of devotion. We might have been inspired by them. So we have to take time off and contemplate and think and introspect, do some study and feel and see. Try one for a certain period of time, leave it. Maybe try another, leave it, and spend time with ourselves and take our time. Maybe a few months or even a few years is all right to arrive at what is the most natural alignment based on the two conditions I described some time back. So based on that, what is the most suitable Ishtadevata for me in my further journey towards the spiritual ideal of moksha and jnana, and uh, realizing my true nature, self-realization, realizing my true nature. So in my whatever is the highest spiritual ideal that I can conceive of, what is the most suitable uh, divine form which I can relate to in my journey towards my spiritual ideal. Yeah. So that would be the approach, and you have to take our time. It involves a lot of introspection, and we have to allow ourselves to take our time, allow ourselves to experiment. It is all right, and that's how it is done. And do not wait for somebody to give it to you on a platter, especially in our times where spirituality is a $1 billion market. Yes. So when spirituality is a market, uh, we will have to take our own time and be with ourselves. Shraddha becomes a problem. If you have excessive Shraddha in the wrong place, if the grace is not working at the time, you might waste a lot of time on somebody's marketing. Somebody would have marketed and you would have gotten carried away. So it is always good whenever you are very excited and inspired. Excellent, great. Take your time off, process it, go through it for some time. Then when the divine grace through one devata, one deity, when you worship one deity in a certain way, you earn a certain level of grace. So that grace might take you to what you require. So we will have to allow ourselves to flow through that and take our time to and do some study. Swadhyaya is very important, like we discussed before. So that would be our further discussion uh, on selection and devotion and the type of devotion to Ishtadevata that will help us in our spiritual evolution instead of spiritual consumerism. That is what I wanted to discuss today. And if there is any other questions that is remaining based on the last classes or anything that is coming up now based on what we discussed, you are welcome to ask. I'm waiting to see you on the chat or unmute your mic and you can talk. While somebody is writing, I will give a small synopsis of what we discussed today. Distinguishing between spiritual consumerism and spiritual evolution. They are two different things. Spiritual consumerism is basically materialism supported by spiritual technology. Spiritual evolution is completely different, that is directed towards inner growth. So we have a question here. Namaste ji. Does external form really matter? We talked about external worship. What about internally? Could you please elaborate on what you said, mirror to chitta? Okay. So there are 2 points here. First, I will finish this mirror thing. I said chitta as a mirror. So when you have a certain level of sattva guna, no, the quality of sattva, rajas, tamas, in that the quality of sattva, when it is very high because of a spiritual lifestyle, a lot of pranayama, or you are a very intuitive person, you are a very open ego structure, etc. Your mind behaves like a mirror, in the sense energetically any divine presence that you come in front, whatever presence you come in front of, that energy will awaken in your system like a resonance. Yeah. So you will feel like as though you have completely internalized that and you are very inspired and connected with that. But that need not be your thing in the long run. That's what I said. So this mirror effect on the mind, some practitioners, some sadhakas, some spiritual practitioners could feel this mirror effect. You are basically mirroring the presence there. You are feeling what is in front of you. That way you might feel connected to a lot of things. That should not become the decision making factor in the choice of Ishtadevata. That's what I mean. Okay. So now the more important question, does external form really matter? Yes. I'll tell you why. Our mind is most of the time external. Our five senses are external. They are going and falling on different objects. Whenever we want some comfort, we are always looking for an object of comfort outside us. It could be a teddy bear, it could be a person, it could be a motorbike, it could be a food item, it could be a place where we would like to go, like a beach, take a walk, or a park. So we are looking for a solution outside. This is the nature of the mind. The five senses are directed towards an object outside. Eyes, whenever we look at a very pleasant and symmetrical object, there is a pleasing sensation in the mind. Whenever we look at a dirty place, there is a unpleasant sensation in the mind. Whenever we hear a nice word, whenever we hear some mantras, there is a good feeling. It has an immediate effect on the mind. Whenever we hear abusive words, it has a tamasic effect on the mind. Whenever we hear a very motivational speech, there is a rajoguna coming inside. Whenever we eat a spicy food, it immediately affects the quality of our mind. It affects the mood. Whenever we eat some tamasic food like a French cheese, it again affects the mood in a certain way. Whenever we smell, different smells affect our mind and mood in different ways, right? So that is why they burn some incense in this meditation classes and all that, yoga classes. They light some incense. They create an atmosphere. So when you go into a atmosphere filled with sattvic sensations, it invokes the sattva guna in the mind. So we know from our everyday life that external details create an internal environment. So the external worship matters only to that extent of creating an internal condition. I will put it like that. For the purpose of yoga and Vedanta, external worship is important. It is important for two things. One, to create the conducive vibration outside that keeps away negative vibrations. And two, to create an internal condition where we are open to grace, divine grace, and the internal condition of alignment with the divine facilitates concentration and absorption. Samadhi Siddhir Ishvara Pranidhanat, Yoga Sutra. What is the result of the various practices? In the Yama Niyama, after that it comes, uh, when you are established in truth, whatever you speak comes true, like that. Every Yama and Niyama practice, discipline, is attributed to a result, is connected to a certain result. So the result connected for Ishvara Pranidhana is Samadhi. Ishvara Pranidhana is not just an attitude of surrender. Worship includes both external and internal. But when it comes to our context of purification of mind for the purpose of yoga, which is Samadhi, and for the Viveka, and for the purpose of Vedanta, which is self-knowledge, the only purpose of the external worship is to create an internal condition. When the internal is overwhelmingly aligned with the divine, external worship forms are not necessary. And external worship forms will not be a problem. So you don't, for example, you start your practice of japa, chanting of mantras. We generally start by counting. We say 108, 1008. Like that, we make a commit. So it is a commitment. Until I finish 108 repetitions, I will not stop my japa, and I count. Because of that, it becomes, the counting becomes as an avenue for me to bring myself back. It becomes an aid for concentration. But a stage comes where my inner absorption in the mantra, in the vibration of the mantra, my alignment of my emotions through the meaning of the mantra, and the visualization of the deity, all that internal atmosphere becomes very intense. And counting becomes a chore, it becomes a difficulty. It is disturbing my internal concentration. That is the time when I can stop counting. I don't have to count. I can drop counting and allow myself to get absorbed into the inner process of japa. So the inner must become more dominant. How will I know the inner is more dominant than the external? When my inner alignment with the divine is more dominant, the normal everyday external details cannot disturb my concentration. So I will be able to tune to my deity in the middle of fish market. If I am able to do that, I am able to detach my mind from any external stimuli and directly go into inner absorption. I don't need an external altar. Until I reach that stage, external form of worship really matters. And it is a great help. It is not compulsory, but it is a great help and worth experimenting on. But it is not mandatory and it is not essential, but it is the helpful condition. It's not that without any external form I will never reach inner maturity, but an external form as a context for creating the internal condition required for samadhi, viveka, and jnana is very useful spiritual tool. And usually the question of against what, why do we need external? The question comes, most cases it comes because of some kind of a resistance I have and some kind of a bias that I have, because either because of my past, whatever is my conditioning that I had from my past family upbringing, or the lack of samskara. Because of all that, and because of certain prejudices I may have for external forms of worship, some conditionings that I might have developed, because of that only this question comes usually. So I will have to be honest to myself and investigate that, see why I am feeling this resistance for external forms of worship. So I will have to investigate and be honest and have a discussion on that, and have an introspection about my own resistance to it, and then have some testing only with internal practices without any external condition. How am I faring? And how much have I experimented and been open to external form of worship? Have I tried anything at all? And how much I am willing to try? So this is an inquiry that one must do for oneself with all sincerity, if one wants to not miss the bus on the advantages Ishvara Pranidhana has to offer for us as a spiritual aspirant. Yeah, I hope I answered the question. Maybe I can add one more point, that if when a person is not ready, forcing a person to, pushing a person from outside, a guru or a senior or somebody pushing a junior or a disciple, an unwilling disciple, to practice an external form of worship that they are not able to appreciate emotionally, or they don't agree ideologically or in attitude, that may not work, that may be counterproductive. So it could be a process of a dialogue and discussion where the person gets convinced to some level of practice. Whatever the person is convinced, even conceptually, you may not be emotionally aligned, but you must be conceptually okay to try it. And then one can try it and see how it works. Yeah, right. Also, you mentioned connection to the truth. What do you mean by the truth? By the truth, I mean uh, the the reality, the supreme being from which everything came, in which everything is sustained, into which everything goes back in the end. That supreme intelligence that supports this experience of this universe. That is what I meant by the truth. Connection to the truth. In the sense that one reality that survives all manifestations, in which all manifestations are dependent upon. So that is what I mean by truth. I meant because the word truth or the reality has a broader scope of understanding than the word God, because we are generally conditioned to think of God as a person. The supreme truth or the reality can be personified. That is very different from getting stuck with a person called God, who is a control freak who keeps everything under control. No, it is not about that. So, an idea of God, because of the dominance of the monotheistic religions for the past 2000 years or so, because of their domination, uh, as a collective consciousness in humanity, we have a tendency to attribute we have the tendency to attribute masculinity and a dominating person and overlordship of controlling everything and interfering in every aspect of your life, all that, and a localized presence, like a like a king. That kind of a conception seems to come to our, subconsciously it seems to come to us when we say God. So instead of that, I'm trying to use the word truth, because the truth is the purpose of our relationship with even God. God is only one aspect of the truth. It is, I would say, God is the way of the ignorant to relate with the truth. As long as we are in ignorance, as long as there is ignorance, God is all that we can conceive of. So God, the idea of God represents truth for the ignorant. Yeah. So, but once you see what is the real one, the reality is understood, then the God world and the individual me, all this is one. All this is resolved in the vision of the ultimate reality that most of us may not understand at this point. So, no need to bother about that. No need to be lost in the abstraction. Until then, it is a fact of life. Divine presence is a fact of life. That supreme reality is intelligent, and it can manifest its presence in the relative life that we are living. And that presence can be invoked. The supreme intelligence that takes care of the entire universe can be invoked in a localized presence. And that is what all the uh, Vedas and the mantra shastras and everything is about. And as a helpful factor, that will take us, that will remove the ignorance and awaken us to the truth, to the ultimate truth about that supreme being, which is actually our true nature. But no need to go there until I have arrived at the required inner level of purity and clarity. Until then, God represents truth for me. So, God, when I say God, I will have to understand as truth. That way of seeing and thinking helps us to not get lost in that God as Mr. Dominating King up there in heaven. So, just not to get into that problem, I use the word connection to truth to replace the word connection to God. That's what I mean. We have that in, for example, in Taittiriya Upanishad, we have that from which everything is born, that in which everything is sustained, that into which everything goes back in the end. That is Brahman. No, seek to know that. The one who knows that attains the highest. one who knows that, crosses the ocean of sorrow. So like that, the teaching begins. So that is understood as the supreme reality in relationship with the world of creation and individuality that we experience right now in the level of consciousness that we are in. That is what I meant by connection to the truth. Right. Anything else? Anybody else? Anything else? We have 3 minutes left. Yes. Okay. Good. So with this, we can
Namaste.
finish our. Namaste. Yes, you have a question. Good. Go ahead.
Uh, the practice of the beginning stage of meditation or concentration practice,
The practice of.
dharana or dhyana,
Ah,
or the beginning stage of dhyana,
ah,
beginners meditation time.
right.
How to verify that I am practicing as I begin? Like I'm trying to focus something, and then I'm focusing that, and I am doing with awareness on that focus, and how to verify that it is going right or it is not.
Good.
How to verify it?
How
Thank
to verify? Desha bandha chittasya dharana. Right. So when you concentrate on an internal point of concentration, like the navel, heart, eyebrow center, top of the head, muladhara, etc., any of that, or you are concentrating on a form that is imagined in the mind. So eventually you are coming. So dharana is usually inside. So when you do it outside, it is called trataka. Okay. So when I concentrate on a Shri Yantra outside or a form of Lord Krishna or Lord Shiva or something in front of me, so that becomes trataka. It is not dharana. So I'm using that as a prop, and then I have to internalize it. So only after I internalize it is dharana, classically speaking. Okay. So what happens is, once my internal concentration starts, a point will come where my prana will also, where my sense faculties will start getting absorbed. I can really feel, like the Yoga Shastra describes, tortoise withdrawing its limbs inside the shell. No, you read about this description? In Yoga Shastra, there is a description. How a tortoise withdraws his head and the limbs inside its shell. Like that, the yogi withdraws his senses and uh, focuses on the self. That description is there. And literally, you can experience
you.
it
Yes.
like that. You will be sitting in Padmasana, Siddhasana, or whatever, and you will be concentrating. Generally, you will feel your limbs, you will feel the periphery of the body. The sensation of the periphery of the body will change. You will feel like you are entering you will feel a contraction of your attention, like something pulls back. That is a sign that the prana is also following the intention. When the prana follows the intention, the sense faculties will pull back and the current of the mind will go towards what you are concentrating upon. What is current of the mind, you can experience. For example, now when you are listening to this lecture, let us say there is some bright object in your room or something, or somebody talks on the phone loudly outside your room, on the road, or somebody plays a song, some sensation, or if it is a Diwali time, somebody bursts a cracker, right? It calls your attention. No? You experience that as something dragging your attention. It is calling for your attention and you follow that. So there is an externalizing force that you experience. But at the same time, try this. Take a deep inhale and exhale and keep the breathing under control. The entire breath should be under conscious control. I am just trying to stimulate a temporary kind of a pratyahara. You inhale and exhale and maintain the conscious control of the breath. While you are maintaining the conscious control of the breath, choose something to concentrate upon in your body. Okay, any part of the body, but concentrate, but maintain a conscious control of the breath. When you maintain that, if the same noise happens, you will see that noise is happening outside your bubble and it is not dragging you. That is an experience of pratyahara. So when you are having dharana, when your prana follows your intention of concentration, you will feel that absorption, and nothing outside will have that power of pulling your attention. You will not experience that sensation of your attention getting pulled by something. That is the time when you know that your concentration is getting better, and then you have to sustain that. So within that focus, you can start exercising your buddhi, then that becomes dhyana. Then the one who concentrates becomes the object concentrated upon, then that is samadhi. There are different levels of samadhi, of course, but this is the test. The test for dharana is this. Maybe when you listen to this again in YouTube and think about it and try to look at it during your practice. See, so you cannot look whether it has happened. Just focus on what you're doing. There is a point where you will feel that absorption inside the body. You will feel like you are inside the body. You will not feel the space around you. You will feel the body is around you. That prana and alignment will go inside, and the flow of the sense faculties and the attention, the background attention will align with your foreground focus. That is the sign of dhyana. So there is no dichotomy. There is no distracting mind and concentrating mind. There will be only one mind. So that's how you know your dharana is getting.
Nandri, thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So with this, I will finish. Rest of the questions, make a note. We will continue in the next class. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Tatsate. Thank you.
Thank you.